Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy podcast channel. My name is Jed. Hello and welcome. We are in the Philosophical Midwifery book and we are doing part 2 of a two-parter because we ran out of time yesterday. Our plan yesterday was to go into the Republic to look at exactly how Socrates defines wisdom there. There are a few different views of wisdom that we find in Socrates, and we are going to look at how it's defined in respect to justice and the virtues, the ideal characteristics of the soul that we are here to develop and learn and practice and ideally bake into the soul in a way that it can't be removed. So one of the analogies used in the Republic is like dyeing some clothes. You don't want it to wash out, which does involve removing the colors that were already there, bleaching the shirt, and then dyeing it so the colors stay. So we can ask the question, what would be the equivalent of bleaching out the characteristics that we carry with us so that we can really bake into our soul the excellence of the soul? Now, if you are an eagle-eyed watcher, you'll notice the words philosophical midwifery in the top corner. Could that be the way through which we remove our negative characteristics, our problems? The cause of our repeating cycles of problems? So, we've been looking at the divided line to understand the difference between the 4 cognitive functions: image thinking, belief, understanding, and nous or knowledge. The enlightenment experience, the direct apprehension of being, which is our goal in philosophy. We saw how understanding is the method of examining not the physical world, but the cause of the physical world, the principles of the physical world, the conditions for the physical world, the non-physical realm of being or mind itself. Now, we've seen in some of the other dialogues that that's what learning is. Learning is a preparation of an individual's mind to remember that experience. We talk about how it is a remembering because we recognize it when we experience it, but also even before we have that experience again, we recognize its qualities. We recognize beautiful things. We've never taken a class in beauty. We recognize justice and injustice. We see somebody kicking a dog, we go, hang on, there's something wrong with that. I don't like it. That's not something that we learn in the physical world. So the question is, hey, welcome. The question is, what is it that we're recognizing? So the aspects of being are the eidos, not the forms. That's a mistranslation by a guy named Benjamin Jowett. Not the forms, not the ideas in terms of concepts. That's a problem we have because the word eidos sounds like ideas in English. Eidos is the aspects of being. Being is experienced as beauty itself, the model of beauty, as justice itself, the model of justice. All of the things that we explore in the Parmenides, same and different, like and unlike, whole and part, infinite and limited, and the others. So that's what we are interested in understanding in philosophy, not understanding opinions. As a kind of preparation to experience it, to have that experience of being, have that experience of bliss. The kind of bliss where you know yourself, when you remember or recognize yourself completely all at once. In the most beautiful way, the most perfectly ordered way, beauty itself, justice itself. In a beneficial way, nourishing way. That's the fourth cognitive function, nous. So, image thinking, belief, understanding, with a capital U. Actually, let's stop using the word understanding because it's a word that we use to mean physical things as well, like we understand how to fix a toaster. Let's use the Greek word dianoia from now on. So image thinking, belief, understanding / dianoia, and nous. Dianoia is of nous, as a kind of preparation to have that experience again. Just like our image thinking, regular everyday people, until we go through this process, what they're not actually studying the nature of reality, they're not actually finding the cause of problems or the cause of good things like beauty and justice. Image thinking is about belief and leads to belief. So in our regular way of thinking, all we're doing is running around in a circle, confirming the beliefs that we had to begin with. Which can be a devastating thing to realize because of all the effort you've been through. Or it can be a very freeing thing to realize because you realize, oh, that's why I'm running around in circles. That's why I haven't had any enlightenment experiences. That's why the world isn't changing. That's why nobody seems to be...
Where's the joy? Where's the whimsy? Where's the childlike wonder, dude?
Okay, that's why I'm not having fun, but also that's why...
No one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems.
So one reaction to hearing this is to double down on our ignorance. How dare you? My beliefs were right. Everything that I believed when I was 4 years old was perfect and can never change. And don't you say otherwise. Or what people who end up sticking around in this channel think, oh, really? What I consider thinking up until now has just been a shadow of the beliefs that I've been carrying without knowing. And the end result of that way of thinking is just to put myself back into that same state of mind where I learnt that belief. And to confirm that belief. A self-fulfilling prophecy? Self-sabotage? That's interesting. Well, it's easier to recognize in other people. I have that friend who always gets into that same kind of relationship over and over again, and she doesn't seem to change. Or I have that other friend who always talks about pursuing this thing that he loves, but never does it. Or that other friend who, no matter how many times I tell him that we actually think he's a good guy, he doesn't seem to believe it. He just seems to think in a way that justifies the beliefs that he's had his whole life. Easy to see in other people, but because I'm a person with integrity, I can take the next step and say, well, maybe I'm doing the same thing, and in the same way they don't realize their patterns, their problems, maybe I am in the same sort of script. I have that zombie virus too. Maybe. How can I figure it out? How can I wake up to what I'm blind to in a way that these people don't seem to be able to? That's integrity. Now the good thing is, that's what we're learning in philosophical midwifery. How to specifically surface the unsuspected false beliefs about ourselves from our past that we project onto the present the source of our projection, the source of our false interpretation, that keeps us relating to the present as if it was the past. That's philosophical midwifery. How to free ourselves from that kind of bondage. Now, having been freed from that, what do we do now? Well, now we're free to participate in understanding the truth of reality. Now, we've been looking at the divided line, which is Socrates' model for how to understand that. Got a lot of notes on it, but basically, we have this line, and the divisions represent the amount of clarity and truth. So, the biggest section is nous, the direct apprehension of pure being. What some people call the spiritual experience or the oneness experience. That is the most true and experienced most clearly. Its shadow is dianoia, understanding. That's what we do here. We love understanding. In the same way, the rich people love exploiting people and love creating lies, false beliefs about some people being less than others and therefore deserving of slavery and exploitation, so they can chase money because they love money so much. We have a similar thing, except it's not money we love, it's understanding we love. To seek truth. And to be in a state of being of clarity. Without interpretations, without distortions, without projections. To relate to ourselves in the world in the best possible way. We love understanding. So, understanding requires us to be freed of our beliefs that keep us in that NPC script. We need to cross over this line from the visible realm into the intelligible realm, or the realm of becoming, physical, to the realm of pure being. That's the jump we're after. And if we're able to free ourselves through midwifery, then understanding is directed towards nous, towards being. But after we have that experience, we want to understand it. It's not a one-off trip. We want to make use of it. If this is beauty itself, don't we want to use it as a model for our beautiful creations? If this is beauty itself, don't we want the person that we end up dating to be actually beautiful? If this is justice itself, don't we want to use it as a model for being a just, good person in the world? So 1, getting to it. 2, understanding it, maintaining it, using it. And 3, awakening an even deeper question. So we use our understanding of that experience to ask the understanding questions like, oh, gee, that's awesome. What's the cause of it? So those are the 3, to get there, to stay there, and to go beyond it. Now we've added a 4th use of understanding in our art of Philos, the love of understanding. Turning back to help others free themselves from their chains of beliefs and ignorance so that they can learn themselves, evolve themselves, awaken their ousia themselves. So that's philosophical midwifery. That's using philosophy to gain insight into midwifery. That's how midwifery and philosophy come together. Because they are both understanding. And what is understanding? Understanding is the use of the logos, intelligibility, language, reason, but not just logos, the self-logos. This guy's logos. And your logos, your true logos. How do we make use of it? That's the dialectic. So 4 uses of the dialectic. Oh, hang on a second. What is the dialectic? 4 categories. Definition, demonstration, division, and conclusion. Interesting. There are 4 categories within the dialectic and 4 uses of the dialectic in the art that we're learning here. Is that interesting? Now, so we have 4 cognitive functions: image thinking or ignorance, beliefs, understanding or dianoia, and nous or knowledge. Where's wisdom? Which one is wisdom? Is it one of those 4 uses of these 2 together? Don't know, but it's a good question. And right now we're going to jump into book 4 of the Republic to see what Socrates has to say about wisdom when he's talking about the virtues and justice. Strap in. We're in for a fun ride. Yay. Yay. Let's jump in. Oh, nothing on the board. Take off my jumper because we're starting to cook. Let's bring up the text. There we go. So we're at Stephanus number 441-ish. Book 4. There are 10 books of the Republic. Let's jump in. Okay, we're not going through the whole book, but let's just jump in about here. Socrates. Accordingly then, we have, by the way, see this word? M-E-N in the Greek. That's on here. Zoom in. That's M, that's an E, that's an N. Men. Look at the English translation. On the one hand. Too long. And he always says men. It's the beginning of an idea. Okay, and now. Like this one. Ara. A. That P looking thing is an R and then A again. Accordingly then. God. English language is so clumsy and cumbersome. So, I have found that we can skip on the one hand. It's not needed. It's like just the beginning of a sentence. I'm not reading on the one hand. Fuck that. Look, on the other hand, the other part is only one letter. See, I'm not reading that. So if you see, how come he's skipping these sections? Because get fucked. I'm not reading that whole thing each time. So, accordingly then, that's too many syllables. Therefore, thus, like I might even say thus. How about that? Thus, we have gone through, let's make it a bit smaller. We have gone through these arguments with great labor, and hence it has been reasonably acknowledged by us that the same self, okay, the word altos can be self or same. That's a bit of a trick if you want to unlock a deeper meaning of the text. I'll take the baseline reading first. So, the same species that exists in a city also exists in the soul of each one, and equally in the same number. So this is the basic analogy that he's been using. He's looking for the just, or the most well-ordered, well-arranged, excellent soul. That's justice. That's what we want as people. What we're seeking here. It's what we're here to learn about. Now, a lot of people think life is about inventing or reverse engineering excuses to make somebody bad. Why? Oh, because if you're bad and you have one more idea and you add that to badness, bad people deserve punishment, then you get to inflict suffering. The cruelty is the point of people who are addicted to their pathologos idea of knowing. What's knowing? Nous. How many parents have studied nous? Big fat goose egg. So, without an actual skill, knowledge, art of what it means to be knowing and caring, what do people do? They imitate. Can you imitate knowledge? Nope. Can't imitate knowledge. Why? Because it's a direct experience of reality itself. Can you imitate understanding? Nope. Do this math problem by imitating. Fly this plane by imitating a pilot. Ooh. What can you imitate? Cruelty. Ignorance, absurdity. Very easy to imitate, to do a Donald Trump impression. Many comedians have spent their whole life doing just that. Very easy. Should I try one? Everything I did is perfect. Everything never wrong. Always good. Everybody doesn't like me. The best president. He's an idiot. Very easy to, and he's cruel. The immigrants, they have to go. They're all rapists. They're all criminals. Why is everyone talking about Epstein? Didn't that guy die? It's easy to imitate cruelty and ignorance. So, if nobody's learning what true knowledge and goodness is, when we are in a position where we have a captive audience, like when we have kids, and we are being the first teachers to them of how to be and what they are, that's what happens. That's why we need philosophical midwifery, so we can trace our own problems back to the time when our parents were copying, imitating someone, and therefore acting in a cruel, irrational way that we believed. And we don't know we believed it because we didn't put words on it. That's why the art of midwifery is asking questions that can give birth to the words, and then ask questions that can help people reflect on those words to see what really happened and actually answer them. I'm describing it right now. So, learning a skillful use of our own understanding, following a structure called the dialectic, 4 parts, to ask questions of ourselves and our friends, to surface the nature of the problem that they've been living their whole life, help them see the significance and the stakes of being trapped in a problem so that they can awaken their own motivation to change. You can't make anyone change, but you can help people see how important it is for them to change, either because they're acting in a cruel way to themselves and others, their loved ones, or they have been blocked from reaching their most important goals. Once they see the stakes, they might become curious about changing. Now you're in the game of something that Socrates calls philosophical midwifery. Now we're learning how to ask them the sorts of questions. Oh, there's a disconnection. Are you back? Am I back? Why am I disconnected? So we ask them, we learn a structure of guided questions so that they can surface the content of their problems. That much midwifery was too much. Internet broke. Oh my goodness. So we don't tell them their problems. That's not what we're here for. We help to midwife them, help them give birth to an insight about their problems. So they'll give birth to certain words. That'll be the clues. Like Sherlock Holmes, you need the clues. And then we ask them a series of questions using our art that we're learning here to help them put the clues together and solve the mystery. It was Moriarty. Tracing their problem back through their past, realizing that they've got a history of this problem. They've been living it out their whole life. Every time they try and talk to a beautiful girl, every time they try and pick up an instrument, every time they try and seek their goal, they shoot themselves down in a certain kind of way. Keeps them stuck, makes them angry. It's easy to see in other people, of course, because we are blind. We have blind spots, a tragic blind spot to our own problems. But we can ask them questions that can realize that they've been living out this pattern their whole lives, tracing it back to the origin scene, where we got our first teaching from our first spiritual teachers, our parents. Did they know what was true about self and reality? Abso-fucking-lutely not. Why? Well, simply because they haven't studied philosophy, true philosophy. They haven't studied what knowledge is. So what we've been looking at recently. What is knowledge? Nous. The capacity of our own mind to turn around and know itself completely all at once and recognize the eternal nature of your own self and consciousness. It's an all at oneness. Some people call it the spiritual experience. It's also the cause of our physical world. But we don't want it as just nous. Nous is the Greek word. We don't have an English word for it, so we call it knowledge. But we don't just want it as knowledge. We want to understand it. That's where understanding comes in. Have I been disconnected the whole time? That whole big speech that I made was not coming through? What's going on here? For 5 minutes, holy shit. Why? Why am I disconnected for 5 minutes? Maybe I got too many things open. Let me close all my other apps. So I'm back now. Didn't come from you, it was... Okay, so I'm back. All right. So what are we doing? We have been reading Socrates, somebody who has gone through the evolving process with understanding to recognize that there are 4 cognitive functions that we have. We have image thinking. This is our regular thinking, based on the physical world. And that is caused by our beliefs. So the worst kind, the smallest section of the divided line, is image thinking. It's caused by the beliefs that we get from childhood, from a certain scene in childhood. And its purpose is to bring you back to that belief, a self-fulfilling prophecy, a self-confirming, self-sabotaging way of being. So we say people are trapped in a loop. We are NPCs. Or, if we recognize that this kind of belief is a psychic parasite, not only are we bound to a script or fate, but it saps our energy like a parasite. We can call it a zombie virus. This is the nature of human beings at a certain level of evolution, keeping us blindly loyal to our ignorance and people who resemble our earliest teachers. So it could be Trump, it could be Putin, it could be Hitler. There are lots of people who are blindly loyal to them and never awaken their understanding. We're learning the art of midwifery to use our understanding to ask them questions about their beliefs and their way of thinking that cause their problems, so that they can themselves learn how to question, learn how to think, learn how to understand. That frees them from that chain to make this jump from image thinking and belief, opinions, into what is knowable. Truth and clarity. Make that evolutionary jump, make that learning jump, make that spiritual jump into the realm of dianoia. Dianoia is understanding about the intelligible realm, which we experience as nous. But after we have this experience of recognizing yourself as consciousness itself, as all of eternity all at once, as the brilliant light of pure being, we want to understand it. So understanding gets you to it, but understanding allows you to recognize that there are aspects. Those are called eidos, commonly mistranslated as ideas, because ideas sounds like the Greek word eidos. Eidos means aspects of beholding. To behold, you know it, you experience it. Or mistranslated as forms, because one translator named Benjamin Jowett gave a shitty translation and said, oh, they're like forms. They're not forms, they're aspects. So our dianoia gets us to nous, allows us to keep nous. It also allows us to wonder about the cause of nous, to go even beyond enlightenment. That's the use of understanding. We're adding a fourth, which is to use our understanding to ask other people questions about their image thinking that have caused their problems. Ask them questions about the unsuspected false beliefs that they don't know that they're carrying, and they've forgotten where it came from, but is the cause of their image thinking, and their image thinking leads them to confirm those beliefs. That's what keeps them trapped. That use of understanding in this way, in that healing way, in that purifying way, is philosophical midwifery. The use of understanding in those other three ways, to get that, to maintain it, to go beyond it, well, that's philosophy. So we do philosophy, we do midwifery, and our guide for that is our dreams. Our personal guru is our dreams, so we also use dianoia to understand the meaning of our dreams. Okay, so if that's knowledge, and that's understanding, that's belief, that's image thinking, where the hell is wisdom? Is it one of those four things we said that uses both of these together? Is that wisdom? Is wisdom beyond this? Is wisdom the next section of the divided line? Are we supposed to increase this divided line and put wisdom here somewhere? So that's our question. We are going to jump into book 4 of the Republic and hear Socrates talk about wisdom. So, he starts by saying, this is the root analogy. To talk about how to properly arrange our soul to facilitate that experience of nous, knowledge. That's called justice. Justice as the virtues. Now, the experience of nous allows you to experience justice itself, so there's a kind of leveling up. But to talk about how we should act, how we should act in the world to become excellent ourselves, it's hard to see because the soul is small and invisible. So he says, okay, let's create a metaphor, an analogy. and talk about the city. Let's create a completely fake city and talk about how that would be arranged as a metaphor for how we can arrange the aspects of our soul. That's where we are. So, the same thing exists in a city as it exists in the soul, and equally in the same number of people. Right, says Glaucon. He's talking to Glaucon. Is it not indeed necessary and immediately the case that an individual soul is wise? There is our Sophron underneath. Let's highlight it. Raft of wisdom. In the same way that the city was wise, and in the same part. So you're going to talk about what would make the city wise and what part of the city gives rise, because we have parts of our soul. What are the parts of the soul? Well, just because we've skipped the book 4, I'll give a quick recap. You can understand the soul as a way of, turn my light a little bit, as a way of unifying the forces that we have within us. Now we have a part of our soul that desires outwardly. Sorry, inwardly. Inward. That's the biggest part of the snowman. Our belly. There's our little legs. Right? You want to eat a nice sandwich. Have another part of your soul, which is the next biggest, which is the outward moving. Outward moving. Let's give it a different color. The outward moving part of our soul. Excuse me. Something that motivates you to go out and do things. Like, tune in to this podcast. But to do that, you need some part of your soul. Let's give little arms for our snowman. Some part of the soul that is the reasoning part. You have to reason. You have to think about how to find a good sandwich. You need to think about how to subscribe to this channel. So you can call all of these three forces together. You can say that's the soul. And Socrates is making an analogy. Hey, you need, in the city, merchants, shopkeepers. You need a warrior class to protect the city. You also need a philosopher king or a philosopher queen to rule. Now, the head is much smaller than the belly, meaning there are a lot fewer people in the city who can be a philosopher king than there are people who can be a moneymaker. And what we just read is him saying, in a similar way, the part of our soul that loves reasoning, loves the logos, is smaller, harder to tap into than the part of us that loves a sandwich. That's where we are. Everything streaming through okay now? So, in the same part that the city was wise, in the same part of the soul. So there's an aspect of us that has the capacity for this mysterious thing called wisdom that we're looking for. Of course, says Glaucon. So then, Socrates, according to which And just as the individual was also brave, one of the courage, no problems as far as you're concerned. Great. Just like Glaucon. No problem, Socrates. What next? Copying the snowman. Oh, neat. You're making notes. That's the game. That's good. That's good. That's good. You're activating your own reasoning part of your own soul by becoming an active participant. That's great. Which is creating the conditions for your development of understanding and insight. So good for you. Okay. So, the part of the city that was wise, this corresponding part happens for our soul. Also, the part of the individual soul that gives courage, in the same way, makes the city just as the individual soul has courage or bravery, so also, according to this, in the same way, the city is brave. And also in the other ways, both of them have to exist in the same way in regards to virtue. That's the metaphor. That's the whole thing. That's the Republic. It's a metaphor for your soul. It's not a political textbook. It's a guide for your soul. Necessarily. And I certainly suspect, Glaucon, that we shall say that a person has justice. This word here. That fancy looking D is a D. That I looking thing is an I. That K looking thing is a K. That A looking thing is an A. That I looking thing is an I. That O looking thing is an O. That V looking thing is an upside down N. Dikaon. Or dikaios. Dikaios is the Greek word for justice. That's what we're after. That's the excellence and the most well-ordered soul giving rise to the excellence of our soul. How do you remember the Greek word for justice, which is dikaios? Create an image that sounds like the words, and that'll help you remember it. It's a mnemonic device. Dikaios is the Greek word. So, in your notebook, draw a little picture of how to remember the word dikaios for justice. I'm not going to tell you what to draw. Use your imagination. Your filthy, filthy imagination.
I can't walk and chew gum at the same time.
Okay, so in the same way a person has justice, in the same way the city is just. But even though this is a manual for the soul, we could say, well, yeah, but if it's good for the soul, it's good for the state. In other words, we can use this to help us better our world as well. Surely then we have not in some way forgotten this, that the city was indeed just, when every one of the three beings living in self performed the work of themselves. The merchant isn't doing some time. What would happen if you had like a capitalist or a money maker, I don't know, ruling the city, making the laws for the city? What would happen if that part of the city wasn't doing his job? Have you heard of a money maker or a business guy who became president? Wouldn't it be chaos? So, having each part of your soul doing its intended purpose makes justice. Merchants doing merchantry, the warriors doing warrior stuff, and the philosopher king, or the ruling part of your soul doing the ruling. You ever met somebody who was ruled by the love of money? What kind of a snowman would that look like? if this part was on the top. Ever seen people motivated by outward moving desires, fame? What kind of a snowman would that look like? Ara, therefore, we must remember that each one of us will be just. Here's our D-I-K-A-I-O. That squiggly S-looking thing is an S. The outward moving, it's merchants to you, or is it desire? Merchants are inward. They're the bottom part. They're our belly. The Taoists think of the belly, the heart, and the head. But the inward seeking part is our inward desires. Yes, our desire part. Our outward moving part is the middle part. That's the warrior class. Go out and conquer the world. Or defend the city. And be praised for being the bravest. The most famous. Honor seeking, you could say. So another way of talking about it is the desire seeking, or the honor seeking, or the logos seeking at the top. But we want every part doing its proper function for there to be justice, or dick chaos. Each one of us will also be just and do the works of self when each one of us performs the work of self within the self. We must especially remember this. Socrates, is it not the case then that it's fitting for the rational element? What's the rational element within our soul? Look at the word here. That's an L. That's an O. That Y looking thing's a G. I-O. Logio. The rational element, the top of the snowman, is named according to the logos that we have been learning about this whole time. The self-logos that we make use of through the dialectic. We read that last time. The power of the self-logos is the dialectic. Now, because you weren't here last time, Reeve, let's... No. We'll stay on track. Down the track. We can go back into it later. We looked at the divided line in the end of Book 6 of the Republic. And if you want to find the text yourself, Google Balboa, B-A-L-B-O-A, and Republic, and you can find a link where you can download it on the archive for free. So it's fitting for the rational element to govern, to lead, since it is wise. Interesting. So this virtue of wisdom specifically is about the reason-loving part, or the logos part of our soul, and truly has the providential care for the whole soul. So logos and providence go together. Providence is a fancy word that means care, divine care, the best sort of care, a bestowing of what is most beneficial for the individual in respect to what's most needed for them at their period of development. So when we make use of the logos in dream analysis, we apply the dialectic to our reflecting on our dreams, we access a kind of providence guiding us in our work in our own midwifery and our philosophy, removing what's false and learning the truth. So that's how our dreams are our guides. Because providence, the providential care for the whole soul, comes from the logos aspect because the virtue of wisdom belongs to it. So we're learning more about what wisdom is. It's tied to the logos, tied to the top of the snowman, tied to providence. Providence for the whole soul. The whole city is made better. Not when we have a war hawk in charge, that's the middle part of the snowman on top, or a money-loving part. That sound like anybody? Someone who likes to be ruled by the warrior part of their soul? Sound like Netanyahu? Somebody, a country ruled by someone who is a lover of money and wealth? Sound like America? What are those two guys up to? Are they truly wise? Or are they imitating a kind of cruelty and ignorance? Are they providing beneficial care for the whole country and the whole world?
Is this chat full of dumb cunts?
Sorry, chat. I'm still working on my soundboard. So far, all of my buttons are kind of random. Well, half of my buttons are random. I don't know what's going to come up. I promise I'll work on it soon. So the spirited kind. Okay, so the spirited kind. So the middle part of the soul is the spirited kind. That TH. The timocratic soul. Lover of honor. So the middle part of the soul is the spirited kind. Shouldn't it be obedient to and an ally of the wise part of our soul? You don't want to be spirited without wisdom. You'll end up killing everyone. Or defending ignorance. Glaucon says entirely so. Take notice then, shall not a mixture of music and philosophical education, just as we observed, make themselves symphonic, harmonious, concordant? Now, music and physical education is an analogy that we talked about in book 3. So we're not going into it now. But physical education is kind of cultivating an inner energy. Like if you've watched Dragon Ball Z, you've heard of Ki. Or if you do some like martial arts, you've heard of Chi. Or the Kundalini. The spiritual energy that you develop and maintain and not try to, spill in various ways so that we can make use of it in this activity. Music is a little bit more complicated, but it's to do with being aware of your state of mind, managing your state of mind, judging the state of mind of other people. But these aren't the virtues. This is a kind of pre-training. So, a mixture of music and physical education makes yourself harmonious because one tightens and nourishing the one with beautiful kinds of logos and learnings. On the other hand, the other one loosening by comforting and rendering it gentle through harmony and rhythm. So you don't want to be too brutish, but you don't want to be too, what do we call it nowadays? Soy boy. You don't want to be a soy boy cuck, but you don't want to be a toe-headed, gun-toting fascist. Terrible analogies. Let's use a different one. You don't want to be too stern in your insistence on the logos and understanding, to yourself, to your friends, to the world. But you need some of that. That's very important. You can't be pushed around. You don't want to be pushed around either. So this mixture of empathy, but also requiring people follow understanding and argue well. A mixture of softness. Interesting. Don't know about this. Warrior gene. So, keep balanced. Because the two are nourished in this way, and the truly educated are instructed in the works of themselves, they must provide over our appetitive element. The belly, the biggest part of the snowman, wants to eat all the sandwiches, wants to have all the monies. The billionaire class. Desirous of possessions and property and money and goods. Okay, interesting. Over which they must keep watch, unless they'll be filled with these so-called bodily pleasures. Now we're getting to the root of it. Bodily pleasures, is that your highest good? If you think it's your highest good, that becomes your addiction. Hey, welcome. Thanks for stopping in and saying hi with the lovely, colorful dancing kitty emoji. Very cute. So, bodily pleasures. If you are not keeping watch over your desiring part of your soul, the big fat part of the snowman at the bottom, you will have yourself, your soul, ruled by that physical pleasure seeking part. It will become large and strong and intend not perform the works of self, but attempts to enslave and then rule those other classes, which it's not proper for it itself to rule, and thus overturn the life of all. Sound like Trump? Entirely so. Sound like somebody with an addiction? Everything I do outwardly in the world, all of my thinking is, how can I satisfy my physical pleasures? How can I kiss the most girls and eat the most sandwiches? Or take the most heroin, whatever. Take notice then. Would these two also best keep guard against enemy from without, by its influence over the whole soul and body? The one deliberating and the other fighting for and following its leader, and completing with courage that which has been deliberated. So, there's a part that is desiring, but don't let it rule. There's a part which can guard against enemies to the logos, false beliefs from your pathologos. Hey, when you start to get into philosophy, when you start to love understanding, love the logos, you realize there's a kind of pleasure that's not physical, but far outweighs physical pleasure. The bliss of pure being or knowledge or nous. When you start to pursue that line, there'll be other enemies from without that say, oh, what about that false belief that says, be like mummy and daddy? Or, you're not good enough. Or, don't use thinking. Thinking is empty. There's no such thing as knowledge. You can't know the mind of God. That's heresy. You can't know the meaning of life. Surely not. You're an idiot. That's an enemy from without. None of those statements are true. You can know nous. In fact, that's what we're here for. That's what knowledge is. You can know the mind of God because that's mind itself, the divine mind, the eternal mind. Now we want to go beyond that because we want to know the cause of even that, the self. So any idea of God is going to be lacking when we want to know the self. Any belief that says otherwise, we have to keep guard against until we completely free ourselves from those foreign influences through philosophical midwifery. So this virtue of courage is a kind of discipline. You don't know that the things that we're learning about the nature of self and reality, being able to know pure being, being able to hold on to it with our understanding, to be able to go beyond it, to seek the self, the cause even of pure being, to be able to function with it to help midwife others. You don't know that that's true yet, until you do. Therefore, you have to keep courage, defending against non-logos, the pathologos, the false beliefs about self and reality that diminish you or sabotage you. But also protect the logos, everything you are learning about what's true about yourself, about the different cognitive faculties that you have. You can go beyond belief to dianoia, understanding. You can go beyond the physical senses to awaken your ousia and know that which is eternal. Or remember. You gotta hold on to that even when it doesn't feel true. Because it doesn't feel true at the beginning. Because our pathologos feels true. That's our image. That's what molds us. That's the cause of human problems. So, that middle part of the soul, this part, the purple part of the snowman, is second to the top, but guards what the reasoning part, guards what the philosopher king says is true, and guards against foreign influence of our pathologos that says you're not good enough, or you can't know, or do something physical, or sacrifice for somebody else's life, be a Cinderella. Don't rule your own soul. Give up on your goals. You gotta guard against that. That requires courage. And the seeking of physical pleasures is right down the bottom. I mean, there is a kind of pleasure in reaching knowledge. I mean, it's the highest kind of pleasure. That's why some people like the Taoists, these guys with that symbol, they think it's enlightenment because it's the highest experience. Bliss. But is there even a cause of that? So, following the leader and completing with courage that which has been deliberated, reasoned to be true. Not believed because it gets you lots of sandwiches. Not believed because you grew up with this belief. No. Logos, your understanding. Glaucon says it so. Socrates. And surely we call every person brave, courage, I believe, when this spirited element of self preserves the orders given by the logos. Throughout all, here we go, pains and pleasures. As we go through life on our learning journey, on our evolving journey, we will have pains. We will have pleasures. Courage is the spirited aspect of your soul that can preserve the learnings that you are gaining through the logos, even when it's painful. Now, what's interesting is what's more dangerous is pleasure. Because your pleasures feel real. Your pleasures will take up your attention. Your pleasures can distract you from what you have been learning about what is truly real and true and worth seeking. So, courage and pleasure. It's not like giving up pleasures. Not being an aesthetic, going to the woods and taking off all your clothes and living with the bears. No. It's preserving the orders of the Logos, holding true to what you are understanding is real while you're having pleasures and pains. Especially concerning what is terrible. What we are recognizing as what's the most terrible thing? Pathologos, cause of human problems. So as you go through midwifery, hold on to what you're learning. Even when some people say, hey, don't you get a little bit of a pleasure by, being racist, like, or believing that we are the chosen people, like Jesus said, or like Muhammad said, or like whoever said, Joseph Smith, Zeno, right? If you go back to us, you get to go to the picnic on Sunday with the church. Actually, no, I don't want to sacrifice my understanding for ignorance, even if you're offering me pleasures, because it's unjust. Not true. It allows me to be manipulated. Sabotages my own development. So, need courage as we go through midwifery and as we go through philosophy. So, then they are indeed wise, that's what we're after, from that small part in self. So let's make the snowman differently. Let's reflect what we're doing. The outward moving part is smaller than our desires, which are huge. And the reasoning part, oh my God, it's even tinier than that. Why can't I delete that part? Delete. There we go. That's the snowman. Look how small our little head is. Tiny head, like Hassan Piker. You gotta preserve. So, wisdom comes from that small part in self by which it governs and by which it communicates its messages, and by having in self the knowledge of that which is beneficial for each one and for the whole in common, by being of their three selves. So, to know what's worth desiring, to know what's true in the Logos to protect, to know what's false, the pathologos, to guard against. That comes from the smallest part of the snowman, the smallest part of our soul, the smallest force as human beings. The reasoning part, the love of understanding, philodianoia. The real art we're here to master, love of understanding. So that virtue of wisdom comes from there. It's a knowledge which it benefits the parts and the whole. Perfectly so, says Glaucon. Interesting? Are we getting close to discovering what wisdom is? So far we've learned that it comes from the small part. It's to do with the love of logos, love of learning, love of philosophy. It benefits the parts and the whole. But what is it? It's a knowledge of benefit somehow. What follows then? Okay, so there are 4 virtues that we have in this section. Sound-mindedness, or keeping your cool, is one of them. So far we've looked at the virtues. We've got wisdom, which is to do with the reasoning part. We've got courage, which is holding on in pleasure and pain, the instructions from wisdom. We've got temperance, keeping your cool, cool-headedness, not losing your shit. That's one virtue. And the idea is, when we have all of those together, we have the fourth virtue, justice. Those are the four we've been looking at. Now there's a mysterious fifth virtue, because there always is. When you see four of something, you can wonder, is there a mysterious fifth? Just like the dialectic has four parts. When you talk about a subject, what will you talk about? The subject in relation to itself, the subject in relation to how it functions to others. As a result of that functioning, how will those others then go on to affect other others? And then how will those others being affected by this whole game return back to the self, back to the subject? Give a definition of your topic. How does it demonstrate? Division and conclusion. Now, four aspects. Whenever we see a four, we can wonder, is there a mysterious fifth? So we'll keep that in the back of our minds. Carry a question with us as we go. But these are the four virtues so far that we're looking at. So, cool-headedness or sound-mindedness is no other than this in the city and in the individual. Okay, great. He's about to define one of those virtues that we need. For the city and the individual. What is it? Oh, we just defined it. Oh, no, we're here. Sorry, I skipped ahead. Glaucon saying yes. Okay, let's go back to read it. Are they not sound-minded or sophrosun or sophrona? Sophrosun is the Greek word for cool-headedness. Sophrosun. From the friendship, there's our phila, or phila dianoia, or phila Sophia, philosophy, friendship or love, and symphony in these elements themselves, when both the leaders and those when the leader and those who are led agree as one. That the logos, the rational, the logos seeking element. Now he's saying the rational element, it makes sense that he picked that because that's the closest English translation, but what we are learning is the logos isn't just rationality. The experience of being is understandable. That's also the logos. It's the highest aspect of being. So yes, it's reason, but reason is just a shadow of the logos. Yes, we use it in understanding, but that's just a shadow. Pure logos is recognizing the understandability of pure being. That's what we seek with that small part of the snowman. So the big part seeks, the belly seeks appetitive. The appetitive part seeks bodily pleasures and wealth to fulfill those bodily pleasures. The honor-seeking part requires courage, and the logo-seeking part is at the top. Now, what's the virtue of sophrosun, or sound-mindedness, or keeping your cool? When all three parts agree as one that the logos-loving part should lead. And when it does not, you will raise fractions against yourself within yourself. You'll be disconnected, you'll be fighting within yourself. If sometimes you let your bodily desires rule your life, sometimes you let fame, honor seeking rule your life, and sometimes you'll be ruled by reason or logos. Oh. How easily can you be manipulated by outside forces? So, one of those virtues, or those four virtues, we don't have justice yet. Don't know what that is. But we know wisdom is something to do with the logos loving small part of our head, of our snowman, that leads, is beneficial for each of the parts and the whole. What is it? Don't know yet. Hasn't said yet. Courage is to hold on to this wisdom in pleasure and pain. Hold on to what? Don't know. Hasn't been said. Temperance is having each part of your soul agree that wisdom should lead you. And everyone's in agreement. Even though there's more of our desire, there's more merchants in the city, there's a bigger belly than there is a heart and a head. Still, we're all in agreement, that's temperance. We're all in agreement that we should be led by the logos loving part and its excellence, its intended function, wisdom. What is wisdom? No idea. Haven't seen him talk about it yet. We talked about how it functions and how it's needed for this one, how it's needed for this one. What is it? Don't know. So let's keep reading. Sound-mindedness is indeed no other than this, both in regards to the city and the individual. Neat. Socrates says, certainly on the one... Oh God, I keep saying on the one hand. Certainly, that which we have often said, they will be just by these distinctions and in this way. So what is justice? Dick chaos? Don't know yet, but if they're all doing their job, ordered in the right way, following wisdom and the love of logos, then they will individually be just. Glaucon says that's necessary. Says Socrates, what follows then? Have we not in any way lost our edge? Have you stopped edging? So that justice appears to be anything else than this, the very aspect that has been brought into light in the city? Is he going to tell us what justice is? Hopefully.
I've been a bad little girl.
Well, you don't have to be, Emma, if you listen to what he says about justice.
Whore much?
Come on, Emma. The Oracle is encouraging you. I'm going to eat a cookie.
Okay, go ahead.
Hang on.
But this is probably the stupidest, craziest example of this little kid style lying I think I've seen on this channel thus far.
We'll keep watching RM because we're getting closer. Have we lost our edge? So that justice appears to be anything else than the very aspect that has been brought to light in the city? Does not appear to me, at least. Socrates says, Glaucon. Socrates says, if any part of the soul still disputes this claim, then let us confirm it all together by the following method. Let us apply a load to self. Now, you might be asking, why is he talking about edging and applying a load? And you might say,
I'm too pure.
you're too pure for that kind of language. And then you might say,
You're a fantastic moron.
you're a fantastic moron because this is filthy.
I can't walk and chew gum at the same time.
Okay, I need to... Okay, I'll stop complaining about my soundboard. This is when she's supposed to say it's disgusting, or it's weird, or it's sad and I feel sad for you. I need to get more drops. Anyway, let's apply this big fat load to self, which I guess is a Greek expression. Our translator says, prove this to them. Prove what? This, in respect to both the city and the individual who is like it by nature and by nurture, if it were necessary that we come to an agreement, whether it appears that such an individual would embezzle deposits of gold or silver entrusted to their care, do you think that anyone would think that this self would do it sooner than those who are not of such a stamp? Right? A city or an individual arranged in this way, do you think they're going to steal from everyone? Like Trump, like Netanyahu, like Putin, like all the other fascists? No. Then such an individual will be free of sacrilege and theft and treachery against companions, whether in private or publicly. Sounds like not only do we need to live our soul this way, we demand this kind of rulership for our city. Otherwise, they will steal from everyone. They might take away our healthcare. They might stop taxing billionaires. They might build prisons for people who can't afford the food to justify slavery so that they can extract more profit. And will certainly never be faithless in any way, either to oaths or agreement. They won't break their promises. How could they? Adultery. No. No. No, stop.
Wow.
No. There we go. Adultery, I said. And neglect of parents and neglect of serving the gods will certainly be fitting to anyone else sooner than to such a just individual. Yes, these things would surely be fitting for anyone else. Socrates, is it not the case then? Oh God. Is it not the case then? There's one Greek word. Therefore, the cause of all of these is that each of the parts of self, here we go, within self, performs the works of self, whether it is leading or being led. Yes. Therefore, are you still looking for justice to be anything other than this power and activity which produces such individuals in such cities? Glaucon says, "Not I, by Zeus." He says,
Wow.
he says, wow.
Wow.
What? And then Stone Cold says, what? But then Glaucon says,
Wow.
wow. Justice is the activity and power which produces within our soul each part of ourself within self performing the works of self, whether it's the one leading or being led. Let's say it again. Justice, the excellence of our soul, the fairness, which leads to not stealing or doing sacrilege against the divine, or stealing from people, or adulterizing. So it prevents bad things from happening as well. But it also is the condition for our highest excellence. What is justice? An activity that produces within yourself something that has each of those three parts within self performing the works of self, whether its job is to lead or be led. What activity produces an effect that you're desiring, your outward seeking, and your reasoning aspect of yourself is performing the works of self within yourself? With temperate, all unified as one, all in agreement. So there has to be in an agreement what should be ruling. That's temperance. There needs to be a courage to hold on to what the ruling part says you should do, in pleasure or in pain. That's courage. What is the works of self that your whole soul is unified towards, being led by the love of reasoning? What is the works of self within yourself? And what activity results in you being arranged that way? He hasn't said. What a terrible book. What's he doing? Talking about edging us. He said he was going to drop a fat load. What was it? There's a filthy part back here. Have we stopped edging? Or have we brought to light what justice is in the city? If anyone says we haven't, let's drop this fat load on them. Filthy. Here he is saying we've defined it. It's the activity that produces a kind of ordering within yourself, knowing what part needs to be led by what, so that every part of yourself does the works of self at all times, whether in public or private. What activity results in that ordering? And ordering to do the works of self. What the hell are the works of self? A terrible explanation of justice. Let's keep reading. Hopefully he helps us out a little bit. Accordingly then, we have completely realized that dream which we had. As soon as we begin to build our city, we have conjectured that by some divine presence, it was possible for us to have lit upon a cause and an image of justice. What? Accordingly then, that was indeed the image of justice, and through which it was useful or beneficial that the one who was fitted by nature to be a shoemaker should perform the business of shoemaking properly and nothing else. And the one who was fitted by nature to be a carpenter must perform that work. So the truth of it is this, that justice indeed resembles something like this. Okay, maybe he's going to help us out now. What does justice therefore resemble? Not in regards of doing the works of self externally. Okay? Not about doing justice outside ourselves. But in regards to that which is internal, within. In the true way, in regards to itself, and to those matters or works that are of itself, in self. They must not allow any genus, any aspect, any part of the soul to do the work belonging to any other part of the soul, nor to engage in any business with each other, but by truly setting its own home in order, and by self-ruling self, while adorning and becoming a friend to itself, by tuning the three beings of the soul in the most simple manner, as three harmonic rules, the lowest, the highest, and the middle, and all others there if they happen to be between them, by having bound them together, all these terms, and out of many having become perfectly one, sound and in tune. Thus, in this way, self immediately knows what must be done, if anything is to be done, whether in the acquisition of wealth, or concerning the care of the body, or in any public or private contracts. And in all these cases, being led to see and define that action as being just and beautiful. The word is beautiful. Which preserves and brings into completion this state of mind, state of being, this disposition, and the knowledge that presides over this action is called wisdom. But on the other hand, being led to see and define that reaction as unjust, which always dissolves this disposition. And in turn, the opinions which preside over this reaction, we will call ignorance. Well, finally, he's dropping some truth bombs on our asses, but what the hell has he said? Let's unpack it. Justice resembles something like this. Within yourself, having those three aspects of the soul doing their intended function, and only their intended function as part of it. So no shoemakers also becoming president, no real estate owners becoming president, no war hawks becoming prime minister or whatever the fuck Netanyahu is. None of that shit. Now, not externally, this is just a metaphor for our soul. Don't be ruled by your seeking of pleasure. Don't be ruled by the seeking of fame. But desire the right thing. Seek honor and fame for doing the right kind of thing. What's the right kind of thing? Justice. What's that? Let's find out. Don't allow any part of the soul to do the work belonging to any other. But set your home in order by self-ruling self. What does that mean? Self-ruling self. by adorning and becoming a friend to ourselves. So one of our questions is, have we been learning on this channel any sort of skill or art or way of being that is truly friendly, truly loving? Philos, the friendly and gentle art. Become a friend to yourself by tuning the three beings of your soul in the most simple manner, becoming one. Is there something that you can desire, seek honor for, and love for through reasoning? Can there be one thing that all three parts can be seeking together? To make the three aspects, not seeking, not scatterbrain like a squirrel, to make your soul one? If you can do this, he's describing a state of being where you immediately know what has to be done and if something should be done, in whatever it is. Money making, care of your body, public or private contracts. Have you heard about this state of being? Without thinking or planning, without any effort, effortlessly, without any pre-thought or planning, know exactly what's most appropriate for the moment. Have you heard of this state of mind? If maybe you've been playing a video game and you feel like something is happening that's different and you're in the zone, maybe in sport, maybe you've heard of athletes in this state of mind. Maybe you've heard about the ideal of the samurai. Act completely appropriate for the moment without any thinking or planning, with the full force of one's being. Have you heard of this state of being? This state of being is a result of the virtue he's calling justice. So, is that justice? Something about being perfectly one, something about being a friend to oneself, and something resulting in some sort of perfectly immediately knowing what has to be done, and if something needs to be done. He's describing the effects of this justice activity, but what exactly is it? How do we be a friend to ourselves? How do we find one activity that is our intended function, so that our desiring could do its intended function and seek it, desire it? So what we do in the world with our activities, our outward seeking, what we do in the world, can also be seeking that same thing. So our love of reasoning, love of understanding, can also partake in that activity. So we're one, perfectly sound and in tune. And as such, we are being a friend and true lover. What's required in being a true friend and true lover? What have we been learning? If we can be perfectly one and be a true friend and lover to ourselves, we can recognize a state of being where you immediately, effortlessly know what needs to be done. Still hasn't described what that activity is, but he's describing what it looks like, what it feels like. But we're after what wisdom is. Let's keep reading. So, with that in the back of your mind, being led to see and define any action as being 1, justice, 2, beautiful, beauty and justice, 2 of the big selfers, 2 of the big aspects of that experience of being we've been talking about, 2 of the biggest eidos. interesting. To see and define. There's some sort of naming going on here. Some sort of judging and naming. Any action as being just and beautiful, which, what's our prerequisite for a just or beautiful action? So long as it preserves, number one, and brings into completion, number two. That state of mind, that disposition. The knowledge that presides over this, seeing, defining, according to justice and elegance, that which preserves and brings into completion that state of mind. The knowledge that allows you to do all that, that's wisdom. What the hell is that? What is the knowledge that allows you to see and define human actions that are just and beautiful because they bring into completion or preserve a state of being called justice where you're in the zone and perfectly unified? Where does that knowledge come from? Oh, and doing so, by the way, is being a true friend and lover. Philos. That's not all. Wisdom also involves seeing and defining reactions as unjust. And we can also add in, I guess, ugly, but unjust, which will dissolve that state of mind. And being able to recognize that behind those sorts of functionings that dissolve this state of being, create disunity or fractions within yourself, causing you to be mean to yourself, causing you to seek many different things instead of being unified, taking you out of that state of mind, to recognize that there is caused by a kind of opinion called ignorance. Have you heard of such a knowledge? Because that's wisdom. Seeing, defining, in respects to justice and beauty, that which brings into completion and maintains that kind of state of mind, but also helping people to see and define actions that take you out of that state of justice, that state of excellence, and helping people to recognize that behind that is a certain opinion or false belief. We call that ignorance. Have you heard of such a knowledge? Because that's the virtue of wisdom. That wisdom needs to rule our soul, has to rule the spirited part of our soul and our appetitive part of our soul. We need to desire that wisdom, that knowledge. We need to hold on to what that knowledge says is true about what's ignorance and false belief or opinion, and what's beautiful and just. That knowledge is super, super important. What is it? He hasn't said. He just said how important it is. How central it is to all of the other virtues. And also to the virtue of justice, which seems to be the result of all three of those virtues together, gives rise to you doing your intended function. The intended function of wisdom is this. It's ruling in this way. The intended function of your spirited part or courage The virtue of courage is to hold on to this in the ups and downs, in the pleasures and pains. The intended function of keeping your cool is to be in agreement that you should desire this. You should hold on to this with courage. You should seek this with your spirit. And if you do have this, you can keep your justice and bring into completion your justice. What is it then? What is this knowledge that we call wisdom that's central for all of the other virtues? Seeing, defining, to do with judging states of mind, to do with judging in terms of beauty and justice, and also judging which based on negative states of mind caused by false beliefs or opinions, caused by a certain kind of ignorance. Hasn't said. But we can look at the divided line to maybe get some clues. There's our snowman. We have been talking about there being an ignorance. Ignorance is image thinking. That's the lowest part of our divided line. The divided line are the different cognitive functions we have within ourselves. We can think in terms of image thinking or ignorance. It's the lowest part of our thinking. The cause of our ignorance is a certain opinion called a false belief, the pathologos. The pathologos belief causes a false image of the self that causes our problems, that keeps us chained to our human problems individually and within the city, within the state, within our world. But there needs to be a seeing and naming. Well, that requires understanding. In regards to beauty and justice are aspects of nous. According to states of mind that bring into completion that ideal state of excellence. But this is all supposed to be one. Is there one activity that makes use of beauty and justice here, being able to see and define here with understanding? That allows for our highest goals of self, so that the self is ruled according to self? And can we find the same single activity that also allows us to address our ignorance here and the cause of our ignorance here? Can we find a single activity that incorporates all four aspects of the divided line? And can we use that activity at all times so that we are always doing our one intended function at all times, whether in public or in private? And not only one activity, but desire that one activity. Outwardly seek that in our activities, in what streams you tune into, for instance. And wonder about it. Talk about it with your friends over coffee. A single activity that makes use of the whole divided line in a friendly, loving way. Philos. And as such, by doing one activity, making use of all possible cognitive functions you have as a human being and others have as human beings, making use of it, that's wisdom. And doing it all the time, that's justice. So what is it? Don't know. Let's keep reading. Glaucon says your words are perfectly true. Well, if Glaucon is saying that, then it must be right. Very well, says Socrates. If then we were to say that we have discovered what a just person and a just city and justice happens to be in themselves, I do not think it would hardly be thought a lie. I mean, each part doing your intended function, that seems to be justice. So if there's an overall version of justice, we'd have to ask the question, what is the intended function or the purpose of a human being? What's the purpose of a city? He's been talking about being harmonized within oneself, and that a shoemaker can't do the job of someone else, and a carpenter has to only do his carpenter's work, and not busy yourself in any other business, and have each part of yourself unified in an agreement. That's temperance. To have every part in complete agreement that you need to be doing that one function. Well, if that's how he's describing the parts as just, and we want justice itself, we have to ask the question, what's the one purpose for a human being, such that we can always do it? And needed because it seems like if you have that, you can get into that state where you immediately know what has to be done. Has to be done, or if anything has to be done, in relation to what? To fixing shoes? You immediately know, hey, we talk about being in the zone in basketball. You immediately know what has to be done in terms of whether you should shoot a three or not. Like Klay Thompson in that third quarter where he's just shooting everything. But is this about basketball? The ideal of the samurai, to act with the full force of your being without any thinking or planning, perfectly appropriate for the situation. But we're not samurais. I'm not. I don't know what the chatters are doing. He hasn't told us what our one function is, that is the purpose of being a human being, such that we can immediately know what has to be done in respect to it. And by the way, wisdom is the knowledge that preserves that one way of being. What way of being? And also is able to judge false opinions and beliefs that cause our ignorance, that dissolves our one intended purpose. What intended purpose? And what's that knowledge? He's doing a lot of talking but not saying anything. Well, he's saying a lot, but not what we want. Sneaky Socrates. Don't have a sound drop for that.
Is this chat full of dumb cunts?
Sorry. Friendly fire for our chat. Socrates. Is Socrates' chat full of dumb cunts that they're not saying, you've told us a lot about it, but haven't told us what it is? We've discovered what a just person and a just city and what justice happens to be. No, we haven't. We say to that,
Too stupid to understand and also refusing to understand. Why not both, right?
Why not both, Socrates?
Hey, whoa. Who asked you? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Who asked you, Socrates?
I'm too pure.
We're too pure for this, Socrates. Let's keep reading. So it's not a lie. Okay, well, he's not lying. Okay, but what's our one purpose or function? Certainly not. We're not lying, okay? May we say so? Okay, we say that you're not lying. What is it though? We may say so. Okay, well, let's all jerk each other off. No, let's not say that. That's terrible. I take that back. Strike that from the record. Let's all pat each other on the backs for how honest we're being without telling us what it is and what the knowledge is that presides over that. Because one is justice and one is wisdom. We want both. And for courage, you need to hold on to this wisdom in the ups and downs, pleasures and pains. And temperance is to agree that you have to do this. We haven't been given any of them, really. What's our purpose? What are we here for? Make money? No, not that. To get famous? Famous for what? What's the love of reasoning want? What's our purpose? Let it be so. For after this we must consider injustice, I believe. That is clear. Well, okay, you've been glazing Glaucon in the chat, but now he's saying, yeah, we've done justice, let's go on to what injustice is. Well, actually, Glaucon, what is it? Doing your intended function? Yeah, what's that then? Well, no, but having all parts of your soul doing their intended function. Yeah, but what's their intended function? Oh, easy. Desiring what reason wants. What's that? Well, whatever it is, the other part of your soul, its justice is holding on to that in pleasures and pains. Holding on to what? Oh, the knowledge of what wisdom gives us. Yeah, but what's that? No, but if you do it, it's justice, not only in the parts, but in the whole, because you'll be unified, doing one function at all times. What function? No, but if you do that one function, you have justice within the parts and justice itself. Yeah, but what? Doing what though? Yes, but in the city, if the city does that, you'll have a just city as well. But doing what? Doing that thing that wisdom gives you the knowledge to preserve. Preserving what? Glaucon, you're drunk. Go home. Glaucon. This is Glaucon.
Talking about a bunch of slop.
Glaucon's talking about a bunch of slop.
The more holes, the better.
Go home, Glaucon, you're drunk. So now we're going to talk about injustice. Oh, great. Is it not the case then that in turn some fastidious sedition among these three genera of self, some practical mindedness and interference in one another works, an insurrection of some one part of the soul against the whole soul in order to govern her when governing does not belong in the self. And by self being of such a nature so as to be conspicuously fit to truly be the subject of, oh, that's a sentence and a half. Is this to be subject to the governing genus? Is it something such as this, I suspect, that we shall call their confusion and wandering from their proper course injustice? A lack of discipline, a lack of courage or cowardice, a lack of wisdom or ignorance, and call all of these vice? So, doing practical things, interfering in some other person's or some other purpose, insurrection amongst your soul, being ruled by some other part of your soul, or in other words, a lack of discipline, a lack of courage, a lack of wisdom, vice, injustice. Well, okay. Well, he's just saying injustice is lacking these four virtues. Great. But he is saying practical things. So whatever our intended function is, it's something not practical. Not about building houses or collecting Bugattis. It's something else. to react unjustly and to be unjust in turn, and in turn to act justly. All of these ideas we light up at once in a manifestly clear way, if indeed justice and injustice are so. In what way? Because they happen to be no different than what is healthy and what is harmful. For as those are in the body, so are these in the soul. Okay, so we can use the body as a metaphor. But what is that purpose? What's this purpose? And what's this knowledge to preserve it, by the way? Still want to know what justice and wisdom is. Hence, the production of health is to establish the elements in the body according to nature, to fulfill and be fulfilled by each other. On the other hand, the infection of disease is to lead and be led one part by another. And contrary to nature. Okay. So whatever our intended purpose is, it's some sort of leading according to nature. It fulfills every part. But if we're not led properly and we're led contrary to nature, that's disease. Still not saying much here. The implantation of justice is to establish the elements in the soul according to nature, to fulfill and be perfected by one another, and the infection of injustice is to be led and to lead one by another. All right, so this purpose we're looking for in justice is according to nature, not to be led by another. So it's a perfecting part, it's a fulfilling part, it's according to nature. Injustice is to be led contrary to nature. All right, so the same question. What's our nature of being human? What's our purpose? Single purpose that we can be led by. On the one hand, virtue will be like a sort of health and beauty and a good disposition of the soul, good state of mind, while vice is a sort of sickness and a deformity and a weakness. Yeah, we get it. We get it. Whatever is our purpose, it's super, super important. And it's not something you carry from within us. It's something according to nature. So some purpose according to the nature of being a human being, a single purpose. And it perfects our soul, brings it to completion. It fulfills us. And doing anything other is like sickness. Okay. But what is it? The pursuit after beauty will also lead to the acquisition of virtue. But if you pursue what is defective or ugly, vice. Okay? So if we seek beauty itself, we might get there. What is it? So, that which remains for us now, it appears, is to consider whether it's advantageous to act justly and to pursue what is beautiful and to be just, whether a person having such a character is noticed or not, whether people think you're just or not, whether people notice you or not, whether it's advantageous to, or whether it's advantageous to react unjustly and to be unjust, even though one may never be brought to trial or become better or be corrected. So, is it better to be a Socrates type of person even though no one notices you, or to be a Trump who can be the most unjust and get away with it because he is so perfectly unjust and never be brought to trial and never be corrected? Has anyone ever corrected Trump ever? Has he ever reflected? He said, I don't like reflecting on myself. What an absurd thing to say. So yeah, okay, is it more beneficial for your soul to act according to justice and pursue beauty, true beauty, even if no one notices you, even if you're not going to be Instagram famous, or even if you don't get as many views on Twitch as Hassan and Asmongold, like this guy. I have fewer chatters, but I have the best chatters, so quality over quantity. Asmon Doofus and Hassan Dork. Score 1 for me. That's a dollar.
It's a win-win-win-win-win. It's a win-win-win-win-win.
Okay, I gotta fix my soundboard. So Glaucon says, Socrates. We're almost at the end of the book. Socrates. This speculation is already shown, at least to me, that it would be ridiculous if, on the one hand, the nature of the body were corrupted. In that case, living life would not be worth living, even if one could do whatever else they wished, along with all the food and all the drink and all the wealth and every sort of power, except this, seeing from what source this self will be liberated from vice and injustice, and seeing the source that self may require justice and virtue. Balloons. By indeed having seen that each of these beings have indeed come to light, such as we have set them in detail. Alright, so he's sort of following. There is some single intended focus. Purpose that we're doing at all times, whether in public, whether in private, whether in making money, whether in relationships, whatever we're doing, there's a single purpose. It's a purpose that we have by nature of being a human being, not because of some opinion we're carrying. There is a knowledge to help protect that and perfect that. That's called wisdom. And it's a kind of knowledge that allows you to see and define things according to justice and beauty that perfect that single function, friendliness and true love that results in a state of being or a state of mind where you're in that zone. You perfectly know what has to be done without thinking or planning. So that knowledge also allows you to do the other thing that Glaucon just said, to understand the source or cause of that which dissolves your justice, dissolves that state of mind, puts you in a bad state of mind, makes you do bad things, distracts from your goal, your true self goal and purpose by nature of you being here as a human being. So our question is, what is a knowledge that allows true friendship, true care, true benefit? As we're adding the idea of benefit, that allows to judge the source and cause of our problems, but also the source and cause of our excellence. Using words, using ideas of justice and beauty. And so that's our question. What's that knowledge? Because that's wisdom. And what's our single purpose by nature of being a human? Because that's justice. He hasn't told us, but now he's saying, oh, by the way, it brings health. And it benefits. And without it, life's not worth living. So, seeing the source where you will be liberated from vice and injustice. So there's a healing, liberation from our problems. And seeing what source you may acquire justice and virtue. Using that freedom from our problems to seek the true nature of our purpose, justice, and virtue, to always live according to it, automatically. Having seen that each of these beings have come to light, such as we have set them in detail, Socrates says it would be ridiculous. What would be ridiculous? Oh, whether it's worth being bad. Okay, good. However, since indeed we have thus arrived at such a source that enables us to oversee most clearly that the ideas have to exist in this way, we must then not grow weary. Glaucon says, by Zeus, we must grow weary. The least of all, right, the sorts of people like us who have gone through this dialogue with Socrates, we have to be the ones who never give up. Of all the people who give up, least of us is us. Least of it is us. Least of all, we must never. Don't give up. Come here, in order that you may see how many aspects vice possesses, aspects which, as they appear to me, to be indeed worthy of speculation. I'll follow, says Glaucon. Now, seeing that we have ascended to the point of the Logos, just as if from a lofty place of survey, as it comes to light. He keeps saying comes to light. What does that mean? There is one idea of virtue, whereas those of vice are unlimited. Furthermore, of which there are 4 of themselves which deserve to be mentioned. What do you mean? There has to exist as many aspects of types of government that are possible, just as there exists different aspects of the soul. Okay, so there seems to be only one intended natural purpose for all human beings to do in all situations. One idea of justice, true friendship and care, and one idea of wisdom, the knowledge that presides over it, but wisdom also is able to see and divine the cause of our vice and ignorance. However, there are many different ways you can have problems. Have we seen anything in our study so far that there are an unlimited source of problems? Is every personal pathologos unique? Is that why we have to do midwifery along with dream analysis? Because there are unlimited dreams talking about the unlimited amount of possible pathologos or problems. Well, while there are an unlimited amount of problems, there are 4 general categories. And we're going to use types of governments as a metaphor to talk about the 4 kinds of pathologos. So, 5 forms of government. 1 is the good one, 4 are the problem ones. So, we have gone through in detail, that'll be one aspect of government. Okay, we'll give it 2 names. If there is a kind of government with one person like what we've been describing, with this knowledge of wisdom, with this courage to hold on to it, keeping their cool with temperance, and doing it at all times, therefore justice, we will call that a philosopher king or queen. If there are a bunch of us, all subscribed to this channel, we will call it an aristocracy, which means to be ruled by the elite or the best. Now, we think of aristocracy as liars who claim to be the best, therefore they get to rule, but that's bullshit. That's not true aristocracy in the way that the name means. So the aristocratic form of government, if there's lots of us, all subscribe to this channel. If there's just one of us, probably Reeve or maybe Sus, the Philosopher King or Philosopher Queen. Now, there's only one of that. They should be the one worthy of creating the laws of the city that provide for the nurture and education. So, after book 4, he says, let's talk about the 4 other kinds of government that are different kinds of souls that human beings can have that can reflect an unlimited source of problems. But he seems to be quite happy with having defined what justice and wisdom is. How well did he do? You are the one philosopher kind here, Jed. We are humble students. Oh, no. See, it's that humbleness that elevates you above the others who claim to know stuff they don't know. See, I don't know what wisdom is. He hasn't defined wisdom. It's some sort of knowledge that presides over the entirety of our soul and preserves a certain state of mind or disposition we call justice. But he didn't tell us what justice is. It's a single thing that's true friendship and true care and true lovingness. But it doesn't tell us what it is. He says it's our nature. But what's the purpose of being a human being? I thought there was no purpose. I saw this one podcast that said, you create your purpose in life. It can be whatever you want it to be. I went to this one church that said the purpose in life is to serve Jeebus. I went to this other church that says the purpose in life is to serve Muhammad. And then I asked these people, hang on a second, it seems like these are 2 opposite purposes. 3. And then somebody said, oh no, that's okay. There is no actual purpose or meaning of life. It's whatever you want it to be. But Socrates is saying the opposite. No, there's one purpose. It's our nature, and you got to do it at all times. And if you do, you can give rise to a certain state of being that we recognize from basketball as being in the zone, or baseball, or music, or samurai arts. But it's no good just jumping into it once in your career, in your NBA career. Once if you're lucky. You got to have a knowledge that allows you to see it, number 1, define it, so you can preserve it and perfect it. And that knowledge is wisdom. But that wisdom also needs to be able to see and define what dissolves that state of being, causes a manyness in your functioning, and the source of the ignorance and the false beliefs behind it to purify from it. So wisdom seems to be a purifying, protecting, and perfecting art, requiring some kind of understanding, leading to us maintaining our one single purpose of justice. Isn't the problem of the Philosopher King that they always flee away from power because they feel like they are unworthy? Therefore, philosopher can only be king through the influence they have on the thinking and action of others. Right, so you've proved that you should be a Philosopher King, because the first thing you said is, I don't want to be in charge. But don't worry, because we are going to make a case that we are learning the art of philosophical midwifery to... No, these are good questions. It's very important. So we are going to say to you, we are learning this art of philosophical midwifery to look at the source, the causes of our ignorance that causes us to fight against the logos of a philosopher king within ourselves and within others. And by using the art of philosophical midwifery to identify the cause or source of our ignorance, so we will never fight against you and kill you like we did Socrates. We are also in this art that we are learning together, learning the source and cause of beauty and justice itself through the logos, so that we can recognize and identify the good work that you will be doing as a philosopher king. So we will remove that, we will perfect ourselves from that which will rebel against you, and we will perfect ourselves so that we can protect your rulership as king. Therefore, you'll have no excuse but to be Reeve the Philosopher King. So your question was a good one. Because here we're learning philosophical midwifery to look at the source and cause of our injustice towards the logos. And we're learning true philosophy, which is the application of the same dialectic applied to understanding and experiencing the truth of reality. And we're also applying that same dialectic to dream analysis to help in both. So it'll be completely safe, and you'll get all of the praise and statues for being a Philosopher King ruler because of the work that we're doing. See? And then if you say, oh, I can't be Philosopher King, says Reeve, we'll say, well, hang on a second. Could it be your nature? To rule in this same way? Through this same art that you've been learning here? If so, it's your one true purpose, which would mean you'd be doing justice by being the Philosopher King. And using your art to solve all human problems without any need of punishment, prisons, or war. And also use that freedom from suffering to create the conditions for applying that same dialectic, the same love of understanding, philodianoia, to using that freedom from problems to then perfect humanity. So healing, using a doctor analogy, doctors heal a sick body, but then once you're healthy, you don't have the perfection of the body. You have the conditions to then go to the gym or get a personal trainer or do a sport so you can get the excellence of your body. What's interesting is it's the same art. The dialectic. What's the dialectic? We saw that at the end of book 6, the dialectic is the power of, or the use of, the self-logos, which is the activity of dianoia. And last time we said dianoia has a purpose. It's to create the conditions for our experience of beauty and justice itself in nous, which is the truth experienced as the disposition of clarity. Dianoia is then applied to that insight to protect it, maintain it. Dianoia is then can also be applied to reflect on it, to go beyond it, reach what its purpose for existing is. And fourth, dianoia can be applied to help people understand the root cause of their vice, their ignorance, their false identification with self, their pathologos. And our question today was, which one of these, or what the heck is wisdom? Is it any one of these? Is it all of these? And now we can add, what's justice? Did what we read about wisdom and justice and also we could throw in there courage and temperance as well. Help us in making sense of the role of dianoia, the dialectic. I don't know. You tell me. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section if you're watching this on YouTube. You can join the Discord if you want to join the group. Be part of the aristocratic class. And if you do, you get a notification when we go live. If you want to donate to the channel, there's a link below. If you want to find this text yourself, it's free. Google Balboa. And actually, I'll put a link under this video for those who want to find it. And thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have become equally as puzzled as I am and equally as infuriated as Glaucon for saying that he understands it and he sees it and it's come to light, and now we can move on to injustice when he seemed to have not given us any of the answers. So yeah, maybe we can all collectively come together and have a class action lawsuit against Glaucon. We will email it to his estate and say, you suck and you should have asked more questions, because what the heck is our purpose, because that's needed for justice, and what the heck is this single knowledge that can act in all of those different ways that you call wisdom. Bad boy Glaucon, we say to you,
I can't walk and chew gum at the same time.
that you can't walk and chew gum at the same time. You're such a doofus. Because,
The more holes, the better.
well, Emma, that's not appropriate. Thank you so much for joining, and once again, I hope to see you in the next one.